can do it.
Oh, lost
Look
it.
at that. I planned that the whole time.
Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Michael with RC Crawling. Today, we are working on the SCX30 again. You can see new wheels and tires. We've also got some new shocks and an overdrive gear in the front. We are going to take a closer look at those, how to install them, hit the setup table and the four-corner scale to see how it affects our numbers to add these mods. And then, of course, we're going to hit the rocks. So I will run that upgrade footage for you while I go out to the rocks, and I will catch up with you out there after we get all the upgrades installed. Let's check out our ride height. We've got our measuring stick marked in millimeters, and the way we're going to do this is we are going to slide it underneath the crawler at the lowest point, which is going to be our diff housing right there, and see where it stops. So we're bumping right there, and that was at the 10, so we have 9 millimeters of ground clearance. The Mias wheels and RC four-wheel drive tires are mounted. I'm going to swap over, install those on the SCX30, and we'll retest our ground clearance. All right, the wheels are installed, wheels and tires, so 39 millimeters. I think that's 3 millimeters bigger than stock. So we were at 9 before. In theory, we should be at 12, but let's see if that is accurate. And we're bumping right there. So we caught at 13, so we do have now 12 millimeters of ground clearance, which is going to be a noticeable improvement out on the rocks. Let's check the weight difference between the Mias with RC four-wheel drive tires and Injora with stock tires. We've got the four-corner scales out. Shout out to Dad's Micro RC Garage. Thank you for the scales. We'll do Injora on the right front and Mias on the left front. I thought Mias and RC four-wheel drive would be heavier, but I did not think it'd be that much heavier. Makes sense. Bigger tire, more material. So weight gain and looking snazzy. Taking a closer look at these Injora 22.5 millimeter oil shocks. So of course we've got the shocks with pre-installed springs. We've got some extra springs with different, probably stiffer spring rates, and mounting hardware with O-rings. So I'm going to dive into this and show you how these assemble, and then we'll get them tossed on the truck. Here we've got our little oil-filled shock, adjustable preload collar. They are oil-filled shocks. Take the cap off. Looks like there might be a bladder in there, hard to tell. But there is some oil in there, and there's some notches to allow the oil to flow back and forth on either side of that piston head. These do assemble like most of the other Injora shocks we're used to on the SCX24. You'll slide in your top mounting piece, we've got some O-rings. I'm going to choose to just do one O-ring on the inside. That's going to be finicky to get on there, but you'll install the O-ring on that side. So I'm going to go ahead and finish building these shocks out, and then we will put them on the truck. I've got all 4 shocks assembled now, and I have figured out that our screws will go through the top to mount into the chassis. And I have already started by unscrewing the top of the rear shock. And so this hardware on the link that pops into the end of the stock shock, we're going to pop out gently. So carefully grab it and just apply a little bit of pressure at an angle and it'll pop right off. Hi, Indigo. I don't know if that picked up on the camera. Then we're going to take our new shock and we're gently going to press this on here. And doing it at an angle will help get it popped on there, just like that. And we'll screw our top of the shock back onto the chassis using these screws. We will probably want to adjust our shock mounting point, since these are a little longer, to make sure we're not sitting too tall, but still able to clear our newer, larger tires. So I'm going to continue to put all the shocks on and together, and then we will go. Actually, we will move on to the overdrive gear in the front. So I will meet you back after the shocks are completed. Now we're going to take a look at our overdrive gear for the front axle. So this is a 213 tooth worm gear set, about 23% overdrive. Go ahead and open it up. So we've got our worm gear, our gear that the axles fit into, and then a few O-rings to shim our worm gear. So we are just going to put an O-ring on the shaft at each end of this worm gear to prep it for installation. Just like that, we're prepped for installation. And now we are going to need to get into our differential, which I think means we're going to have to take our servo off. So I am going to go ahead and get to that point where we can access our differential. This is a good point to check back in. I have got the shocks and lower links removed from the front axle, taken the servo off, and now we're going to undo the top links. And that should release our axle. So axle is free. We've got 2 Phillips screws here to open up the top of the diff cover, and then we will need to remove our drive shaft from the old worm screw. So we will grab one of our precision Phillips screwdrivers. And we should be able to lift our diff cover off. We've got some tungsten putty hanging on there on the side. So our drive shaft is attached to the worm screw. We've got bearings on each end. And then on this side is our gear that our axles nest into, so we are going to need to remove our hubs, our steering knuckles, to pull our axle shafts out so we can remove this screw. I'm going to go ahead and do that. I will pop the new gears in, and then we will check back in at that point. Here is our axle housing all opened up. Taken the steering knuckles off, pulled the axle shafts out. We've got 2 bearings in there, and we are going to drop our new gear in here, and then we will put our axle shafts back in, and we want to make sure these click into place just like that, so it sits nice and flush in there. And now it is keyed into that gear. As I'm turning it, you can see the gear turns. So we will do the same on the other side. You see there's a slotted end that will slot into this gear. Just like that. I went ahead and switched our bearings and drive shaft over to the new worm gear off camera. At this point, we will need to add a little bit of our grease. Don't put this in your shocks. That was a bad idea. It caused them to stick when they bottomed out. So I undid that. But you don't know until you try. So I'm just going to put a good amount of this grease in here. Then our worm gear will lay on top, just like that. And so as the drive shaft spins this worm gear, it spins the axles. It's working properly. We will put our diff cover back on here. Helps if you put it the right orientation. It'll only fit one way, so if it doesn't fit, flip it around. I'm going to go ahead and button this all back up, but it feels nice and smooth here, spinning it with my fingers. No issues there. So I'm going to get this all buttoned back up and put on the truck, and then we will take a look at the setup table and the 4-corner scale to see how the shocks and wheels have changed our numbers, if at all. We're going to check the RTI with our new shocks, but before we do that, I did run the truck with the shocks and the larger tires, and I have changed the mounting locations slightly from what I had shown in my previous video. So we're on the bottom hole right in the middle, so 4th from the back, 4th from the front. And then on the front shocks, we are bottom row right in the center. So that's how I've got my shock set up. It seems to work well for majorly reducing tire clearance. I'm sorry, majorly reducing tire rub on the body. It's probably going to hurt our side hill since we're sitting a little taller, but that could be offset by our slightly heavier wheels and tires. Let's go ahead and check the RTI. Last time we measured this, we were at about 6.5. So let's see where we fall now. I'd say that's a good 7. So a little bit of an increase in flex. Now let's check the vertical. Last time on vertical we were at 65 degrees. See if we've gained or lost because of our taller shocks. There's 45, 50, 55. Okay, right about 60. So lost 5 degrees on vertical, which is not terribly surprising. Now we're going to check the side hill. Previously, we're at 49. We'll see where we land this time. There's 30, 35, 40, 45, let's say 45, 46. So we also lost a few degrees on side hill. Let's take a look at our weight bias. Previously, we were 58-42 front, about 50-50 side, and total of 173. So with our changes and mods, we are 59-41, 192, so gained 19 grams. We've got the battery installed, fully charged, making sure we weigh all those electrons. 50-50 left to right. That might be thanks to our snorkel. So we're getting there. We're pretty well dialed in, right where you want to be for a dedicated crawler. We of course have to see how we do in real world conditions, so we're on the backyard course and we're going to start with the stair steps. Get rid of that leaf. That leaf was annoying. Alright, now we're going to run the stair steps and see how we do with our taller shocks and tires. Doing nicely so far. This is the trickiest spot, but no problem at all. That front weight pushes that front end down. You may notice I've got really good steering. That's partly the overdrive gear that we did, but it's mostly setting the endpoints. And if you have not watched CCxRC's video on how to set your endpoints, I will link that in the description below. That was a game changer for me. A little bit tippier on the sides, I feel, on the side hills, which is to be expected. Between the snorkel adding some top weight and the taller shocks and tires, everything's just sitting a little higher, so our center of gravity is a little higher, which we saw on the setup table. But I think it's worth it for the extra, just like that. I think it's worth it for the extra ground clearance to make it over obstacles. So just gonna have to pick our lines a little bit different than we were getting used to. We have not been able to make this line before, but now that we've got overdrive and taller tires, let's give it a shot and see how we do. Oh, nice. Just crawled right up onto it, no problems. And up onto the boulder pile. We're going to attempt the climb up and over the bridge again. It's a nice little test line to see how we're doing. We'll test out our improved ground clearance and see how that changes. Be careful right here where we might lose it. We can get that rear tire. Nope, can't get that rear tire up there. Let's give it another shot. We'll take a slightly different line. I like the ground clearance of these Dixie CCxRC tires. I'm not sure they grip as well as the stock ones. Maybe after they scrub in. But able to make it. Nice. We did lose some vertical climbing ability. Let's see if we can still tackle the 45-degree climb. Slipping a little bit, fighting to find traction. But we make it no problem. And for fun, we'll try out the frame bender. Buried our rear tire, got caught up, so let's see if we can reset. And we'll take a different line if we can get past the T-Rex, and we cannot. All right, Mr. T-Rex, please let us pass. There we go. Putting those big tires to work, see if we can maneuver our way through here. Struggling and fighting. There we go, we finally find the line. This little SCX30 has walked up the boulder field in the past. Let's see if we can still do that with our new mods. Bigger tires will help our ground clearance, help us get over these rocks, but it may hurt us as far as stability. Getting a little twisted and crazy here. Let's see if we can save it and reposition. Stuck on our axles right now. Fighting through it. I think we can find our way out of here. Nope. We lost it. So let's try again. Be real careful about picking our lines appropriately. This is the part where we can get bound up real easy. Alright, let's turn into it. There we go. Now we've got our front tire. We don't mess it up in the process of trying to climb this final passage. I don't know, I'm struggling today with this line. I don't know if it's my driving or our mods. Let's give it a third shot. I feel like we can do it this time. This is the tricky bit. We want our front tire to come down over here. Let's turn and try to steer it towards that. Now we're caught on the body. Our front tire's in contact. Let's see if we can crawl through it without getting pushed off to the side yet again. We're about to lose it. Let's see if we can save it. Oh. All right, we're going to make this. I know it can be done. There we go, we find the right line. That boulder pile is no joke. It is a challenge for the 24s, the 18s, and the 30s. Finally made it. I like the upgrades that we did, the taller tires and the taller shocks to accommodate the larger tires. It definitely helps with ground clearance. It comes at a cost like every upgrade. We lost a little bit in our vertical ability and a little bit on our side hills. So these mods might be worth it to you. They might not be. Let me know what you think in the comments. Overdrive, definitely very helpful. It unlocked even a couple different lines because we now have that ability to pull ourselves up with those front tires. So definitely recommend the overdrive. Thank you for watching. I hope this was educational and fun. I will catch you again soon in the next video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share. What do you think we should do next? Should we go brushless? Should we put some more low down weight to help correct the deficits of the larger tires and taller shocks? Let me know in the comments. We will keep working on this thing, and I will see you again soon in the next video.